Thea Care welcomes you to a webinar recording on the topic of PCOS and nutrition. We are in conversation with Huda Shaikh, a renowned nutritionist, and Amruta Ray, who runs the Instagram handle PCOD Made Me Do It. In this webinar, you will find answers to all your questions about PCOS and hormones, nutrition, the hormonal cycle and imbalances, the role of food, simple strategies to switch to a healthy lifestyle, and most importantly, the role of gut health. And you also hear from Amruta about what are some easy tweaks you can make to your regular recipes to make them PCOS friendly. Take a close look and thank you for joining. Huda, we'll start with the first question, which is that can you explain the hormonal processes which are now called PCOS? There have been many changes in the way it has been defined. There has been a lot of research. So can you just explain the hormones behind it? I think that is a fundamental question many people must know.
Right. So, firstly, let me start by telling you that PCOS, Polycystic Ovarian Syndrome or Polycystic Ovarian Disease, is a metabolic and endocrine disorder that is characterized by hormonal imbalance in the body. Now, as women, we do know about certain hormones, but we don't know about all the hormones that we have in our bodies. So, number one, there are four hormones that we have which regulate our reproductive system and also regulate the way our menstrual cycle works. So, we have estrogen. I hope all of you are aware about estrogen, progesterone. Again, most of the people are aware about progesterone. Then we have follicle stimulating hormone, and we have luteinizing hormone. So these are the four hormones that we have in our body that regulate our menstrual cycle and regulate all the menstrual processes in our bodies. Obviously, we have other hormones that are present in our body, but these are the reproductive hormones. Now, estrogen is also termed as the female hormone. And during PCOS, what happens is your testosterone levels tend to go up. Now, you would say that testosterone is a male hormone. Why are we talking about testosterone or androgens here? Now, as women, we also have some levels of testosterone in our bodies, just like men have some levels of estrogen in their bodies. So this is just to regulate the entire process. Now, if you go to see in men, there is about 200 to 700 ng per dl of testosterone, whereas in women, you would see only 15 to 70 ng per dl of testosterone, and it has been proven by studies. So women do have some levels of testosterone in their bodies, but during PCOS, testosterone levels tend to go up. Okay, the levels of androgens tend to go up in your body, and then you start seeing certain symptoms that would be visible. These symptoms are typical of increased testosterone levels in your body. Now, during this phase, you would see that your estrogen and progesterone levels would fluctuate. The female hormones, they would fluctuate, and then you would also see dominant estrogen levels in your body. Now, estrogen levels can also go up during this phase. It is also known as estrogen dominance. So what happens is when there is too much of testosterone in the body, it is converted to estradiol, which is precursor for estrogen, and then you see that estrogen levels tend to go up, tend to go down, and then your testosterone levels are again fluctuating in the body. So that is in short what happens during PCOS. Now, when your testosterone levels increase, what would happen in the body? Now, the symptoms would vary from person to person. It would vary from a woman to woman. Not every woman would face or go through the same symptoms. Now, few symptoms that I'd like to put down here are, number one, obviously, most of the times we have been talking about cysts on the ovaries. So cysts on the ovaries is seen, but again, it's not seen in all the women who suffer from PCOS. Next, you would see irregular menstruation. Now, usually irregular menstruation is considered to be a marker if you are suffering from PCOS. So most of the times when women have irregular menstruation, they tend to feel that they are suffering from PCOS. It may or may not be PCOS, and again, most of the women, they do have irregular menstruation, but some women might have normal menstruation or normal menstrual cycles. They wouldn't suffer from irregular periods. Then you would see hirsutism. Now, what is hirsutism? You would see that there is growth of hair on certain parts of your body. So if you see your, on your breast, there's an areola. So, surrounding that portion, you would see that there is hair. There's hair growth all of a sudden. So this hair growth is typically like the hair is quite long. It's not very short. You would see that there is hair growth over there. Then you would see facial hair. So typically, most of the times when you go to a doctor, the doctor would try and ask you if you have facial hair on your face. So there's an increase in the number of hair that you have on your face. Next, you could have weight gain. Again, this varies from person to person. Not every woman would go through obesity or weight gain. Then you would see that there is hair thinning and hair loss. Nowadays, you would also see that there is male pattern baldness in women. So if you see the hairline is receding from here, so that is what male pattern baldness is, and most of the women these days are suffering from the same, those who have PCOS. Then you would see acne. Now, most of the women tend to suffer from acne, and this is very typical of increased testosterone levels or a hormonal imbalance in your body. So whenever there is anything in your body goes wrong, it would directly show on your face. So as they say, your skin is a reflection of what your wellness is or how your well-being is. So if you are well from inside, your skin is going to be clear, clean, and you won't see anything. But if there is a hormonal imbalance in your body, you would definitely see acne on your skin. Then there could be various other symptoms. There could be insulin resistance. Now, insulin resistance is again seen in people who suffer from diabetes type 2. So that is DM type 2. And insulin resistance is also seen in PCOS. Most of the times when you go to a doctor, the doctor would prescribe metformin or glimepiride or any of these diabetic drugs because there is insulin resistance in your body. Next, you would also see symptoms like stress, oily skin, depression, and there could be various other symptoms. There could be fatigue. So this varies from woman to woman. And even now, there are a lot of studies that are going around PCOS, and we are coming up with different symptoms each and every day because every woman tends to show different symptoms. Also, in some, there could be darkening of the skin, or they could see certain diabetic symptoms also. So the symptoms would vary from person to person, and this is the kind of hormonal imbalance that you would see if you are suffering from PCOS. But at the same time, if you see any of these symptoms, it's better to see a doctor and take an opinion. Don't start thinking that just because you have certain symptoms from these, you are suffering from PCOS. It may or may not be PCOS.
All right. So, what I'm going to do now is, Huda, so the questions we had discussed earlier, they're overlapping a lot with the audience questions. So I will just get to it.
Right.
A lot of people are asking about how PCOS can be reversed, if it can be.
Right.
And I think you and I both know that the answer to a very great extent is yes. So there is also a follow-up question about how can diet play a role. Somebody else has also asked if they are a college student and they live outside of their home. So managing a healthy diet is very difficult. So please, tell us two things. One is, what is the role of food and gut health when it comes to controlling and managing PCOS? And for a person, who is living alone or working alone or something like that, what are some realistic changes, some slow and gradual changes that they can make to address this issue?
Right. So I'd like to start with gut health first, since this is one thing that, it's a hot topic these days, and a lot of research is being done on gut health. So let me tell you one thing, your gut, if you go to see, it has all the organs that your digestive system has. So
Yes.
your gut typically has microorganisms or microbiota. Now don't get grossed when I say that it has microorganisms, bacteria or microbiota, because most of the times when we talk about bacteria, people think that bacteria can only be bad and there is nothing good about them. But if you go to see, most of your organs, or your mouth, your hands, your vagina, everything has a microbiota, and similarly your intestines also have a microbiota of their own. So what usually happens is, with PCOS, if you go to see, there is increased inflammation in the body. So if you see, there are increased testosterone levels, your hormones are going up and down, also because you are under stress. So there are increased levels of cortisol in the body. So there's a lot of inflammation in the body already. What happens is, when there is an imbalance in between the good and the bad bacteria. So what happens is, when you have these bacteria, fungi that are already present in your gut, usually the other bacteria, they tend to take over them, and there is an imbalance between these bacteria. So the good bacteria are depleted, whereas the bad bacteria tend to go up. Now why does this happen? Number one, if you are somebody who has been popping antibiotics or pills, whenever you go down with a cold and cough, you tend to take, medicine, and you pop antibiotics like chana and peanuts. That is where everything goes wrong. Because most of the times we feel that, okay, since we have a headache, let's eat a crocin. Since we have a fever, let's eat, chest and cold or any other medication that we have handy. But what it does is, in the long run, it tends to deplete the good bacteria that you have in your gut. Next is the kind of lifestyle you have. Now we'll be coming back to the lifestyle again, but usually, if you are somebody who's more into eating unhealthy foods, smoking, drinking, then you have erratic schedules, you don't eat on time, you don't sleep on time, you are too stressed, and various other reasons that could again deplete the microbiota that you have in your gut. Now, when there is an imbalance, or when your good bacteria are depleted, that is when the problem starts. So, if this is something that it is very desi, but my mom always tells me that most of the problems or most of your issues start from the gut. So, if you have a healthy digestive system, if you have a healthy gut, you won't have any issues. Then again, I would like to point one more symptom that most of the PCOS women have is digestive issues. So they are not able to have clear motions. They are not able to, they have to go thrice or four times in a day to clear their motions. They actually struggle with it. So this is where the entire problem lies. So biochemically, if you go to see, there is a lot of inflammation in the body. And when there is inflammation in the body, anything like PCOS would quickly pick up and start giving you problems. So definitely your gut health plays a very, very important role when it comes to managing PCOS. So a lot of studies now, a study was conducted in 2019, another study was conducted in 2020 in February, which said that your gut health can actually influence PCOS. So if you have a good gut health, if you are eating well, if you are sleeping well, if you're drinking enough water, if you are keeping everything regulated in the body, you won't face problems. And again, with the decrease in the number of good bacteria, a lot of things go down. So what your good bacteria do is, they help in your metabolism. They help in regulation of, the enzymatic action that happens in your stomach. They help in controlling hunger. There's a hormone known as leptin. So when you have PCOS, your body also becomes leptin resistant. So leptin is one hormone that is actually going to control your hunger, and it's going to tell you that this is the only amount you need to eat, and you need to stop here. So with the levels of testosterone increasing in your body, with so much of inflammation, with your gut health going for a toss, PCOS is going to knock at your door at any point in time. So yes, gut health plays an extremely important role. Now with that, there have been studies that are being conducted on how your gut health can be enhanced and how PCOS can be brought down, how the symptoms can be brought down. So there is research going on probiotics, prebiotics. Now, probiotics are organisms again that are helpful for your gut, and prebiotics are is the food for these organisms. So that's why a lot of studies are being conducted on whether you should be consuming probiotics or not. I'll name some of them. We have kimchi, we have unflavored Greek yogurt, we have normal yogurt that you can consume. Then you have kombucha, that is another thing that is considered to be a probiotic. All of these things are very, very important. But again, one size does not fit all. And a lot of studies are still going on when it comes to probiotics. So certain probiotics can suit you, it may not suit you, depends from person to person. So probiotics, if you go to see foods that are rich in fiber, food, your fruits, vegetables, your whole grains, all of these foods are very, very important for your gut health. You need to consume these if you have been suffering from PCOS. Now, next question that you were asking, Swarnima, is how the diet can help. Now, and also how diet helps in hormonal imbalance. Now, if you have to keep your hormones balanced, there is one thing that you need to remember: a healthy digestion, okay, a well-functioning liver, and stable sugar levels. During PCOS, as I already mentioned, there is a lot of insulin resistance in your body. So you could see that your sugar levels would go up and down if you are suffering from PCOS. So if you want your hormones to be in sync, if you want your hormones to function well, then you need to make sure that you have a healthy digestion, your liver is functioning well, because liver is one of the most important organs if you go to see. There are so many functions that your liver can do, whether it's making bile, whether it is, detoxifying your body. So liver plays loads and loads of functions. Again, if you have to store glucose whenever we fast, okay, so the stored glucose is also known as glycogen. So your liver stores that glucose in the form of glycogen. Whenever you're not eating enough of carbohydrates or food, your body is going to utilize that glycogen. So your liver plays a very, very important role. So how do you keep your sugar levels steady? How do you keep your digestion healthy? And how do you keep your liver healthy? Your food, the kind of food that you've been consuming, the kind of lifestyle you have makes a lot of difference. No matter how much we try to run over from the word lifestyle, but your lifestyle is everything. Believe me, once you make minute changes to your lifestyle also, you will start seeing changes. Now, for example, when I have patients who are suffering from PCOS, the first thing I tell them is make a lifestyle change, and one change at a time. Don't try to do everything together. So usually what we do is, when we think of a lifestyle change, what we do, we start eating healthy, then we start exercising, then we'll start doing something else also. We'll start doing yoga, we'll start doing Pilates, we'll start doing strength training, we start doing everything together. That's not how it's going to work. Believe me, because if you've not been in a schedule, or if you've not been in a routine of doing all these things together, you will leave it after 15 days. So the first and the foremost thing that you need to correct is, first correct your sleeping patterns. It's very important, because we ignore our sleep. So for all those who've been asking me that, if we are living in the hostels and we cannot do much about the diet, number one thing you can do is correct your sleeping patterns. So with our generation, what the main problem is: gadgets. Okay, our phones, our iPads, our tabs, our laptops, and all thanks to Netflix, we have so much of entertainment out there. We don't want to leave our tabs and laptops. But gadgets actually are actually spoiling our lifestyle to a great extent. Don't hate me for saying this, but this is the truth, and a lot of studies are being conducted on the same. So if you have to correct your lifestyle, number one, try and sleep well. Correct your sleeping patterns. Sleep for at least 7 to 8 hours in a day. Make sure that you at least get 7 to 8 hours of sleep. So if you have to get up at 6 in the morning, make sure that you're sleeping by 10 or 11 at the max. Leave your phones aside, and also make sure that you don't use phones at least 2 hours before you go off to sleep. Just like we eat our dinner 2 hours before we go off to sleep, leave your phones aside. If you are supposed to sleep at 10 o'clock, 8 o'clock is the last time you use your phone, and you don't use it there, or any other gadgets as for that matter. Number one, you could do this. Number two, you could start drinking a lot of water. It's summers again. During the summer season, you would see a lot of problems arise, and there's a lot of dehydration in your body. So dehydration can again create problems for you. So make sure that you are keeping yourself hydrated. So drink at least 3 to 4 liters of water. I would say at least 10 to 12 glasses of water daily. That is what you could do if you are not able to do much about your diet. So I understand that you must be eating the mess food, and you don't know how much of salt, sugar, or oil they are putting into it, and most of the times they also use baking soda, and that's like an ancient way so that people don't eat much. So when you put when you put soda in the food, what happens is you feel full very soon, and you don't feel like eating more. So usually a person might end up eating 1 or 2 chapatis with some dal or rice or sabzi, and he's done. So that's one thing that usually happens with the mess food. So what you could do is you could try and reduce the portions of what you are eating at the mess. And if you are allowed to stock fruits and vegetables at your, if you have a fridge, or even as for that matter, fruits can stay good for a day or two if you are keeping it outside. Or what you could do is you could fill some water and you could place your fruits and vegetables in it for 2 to 3 days, and your fruits and vegetables will stay fresh. So try and at least have fruits and vegetables if you cannot have much of it while you eat the mess food. Secondly, if you can make basic things, I mean, we get an egg boiler also, so you can, if you can do that at your mess, well and good, it's a very good source. Again, increase your omega-3 fatty acid consumption or healthy fats consumption in your diet. Nuts don't go bad. So seeds don't go bad if you keep it outside or if you keep it in your cupboard. So try and stock these whenever you go back to your house. Make sure that you carry some of this when you come back. And you can have these, so limited amounts. Say in a day, you could have 3 to 4 almonds or walnuts or pistachios or cashews. You can do this while you are at the mess. So these are few changes that you could make to your diet if you are not, if you cannot do much about it. I understand completely. Also, you can make lemon water for yourself. It's very easy to make lemon water for yourself. Make sure that you're not adding too much of salt and sugar to it. You can have fruits and vegetables. You can have nuts. You can have eggs. So all of these changes can be made to your diet even while you are, in a hostel or if you're eating outside food. Next, you had another question, Swarnima?
Yeah. So before I move on to the next question, I just want to summarize a couple of things that you said, because it answers a lot of the things that have been asked to us by our attendees. First is, you spoke about things like hirsutism, male pattern hair growth, and how it happens because of, the relationship between the estrogen and testosterone in the body. You also spoke about the role of gut health, which is something that is very intrinsic, which is basically about keeping a good balance between the good bacteria and the bad bacteria.
Very true.
Bacteria is not all bad, and in fact this is something that we have to keep in mind even while we're washing our hands. Overuse of sanitizers can also kill the good bacteria in our hand.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
that's why people say use the good old soap and water. Then we have got a lot of questions about can we cure PCOS and avoid PCOS through food and everything? Yes, the answer is absolutely yes. I would, however, say that there is a lot of conflicting research on can PCOS be completely cured or not.
I'd like to say something on this one, Nima.
Sure.
So, with the diet, usually, as I've been talking about the lifestyle, so once you start correcting your lifestyle, you can control PCOS, you can maintain the levels of PCOS. And in most of the women, once they've started eating healthy, once they have lost weight, because most of the times, if you go to a doctor and you would be put on metformin, you would be put on
Yeah.
contraceptives, and after a point of time, these medicines don't work. Believe me, and I've had patients who've been consuming these medications for 2 years, 4 years, 6 years. And after a point of time, they themselves were fed up and they said, we don't want to eat medications. We want a better solution for it.
Yeah.
So you do have, if Ayurveda also says that there is a cure for PCOS, so a lot of lifestyle changes can be made. So according to Ayurveda, there are certain foods that you need to avoid, and you can definitely bring down the levels of PCOS. Now, with PCOS is a disorder, it's a syndrome to be precise. When I spoke about all the symptoms, the reason why I spoke about all the symptoms is because PCOS doesn't come alone. It comes along with irregular menstruation, hair growth, hair thinning, balding, and a lot of other things. So it's not only about a certain thing that's happening to your body. There are loads of things that are happening to your body. So with PCOS, what you need to do is make one change at a time, change your lifestyle, start eating healthy. So a lot of women who have lost weight, who have started eating healthy, who have started working out, exercising, they have seen changes, major changes in their bodies. And believe me, even their cysts were reduced. And in some women, the cysts were not even visible after frequent sonographies. So you can definitely bring PCOS under control. But let me also tell you one thing. PCOS can reoccur at any point in time. It is not something that today I say, okay, I am healthy. I've started eating healthy, I'm healthy. After 2 months, I go back to the same routine. I start eating the same kind of food. I stop working out. I don't drink water. I sleep the way I don't sleep well. I sleep for 3, 4 hours. All of these things are again going to come back and affect your ovaries. So,
Absolutely.
and also if you go to see our reproductive system, it is extremely delicate. So any changes that happen in your body, any hormonal imbalance that happens in your body will directly go and affect your reproductive system. So also if you have seen when you're really tensed, when you're really stressed, your periods might be delayed, or you might get your periods really early. Also there are cases where people get periods twice in a month. So post
Yeah.
after 15 days, they would get their periods again. So anything that happens mentally, or if anything affects you mentally, it is going to affect your reproductive system. So please take note of this, that even when we are talking about a good lifestyle, even when we are talking about reversing PCOS can reoccur if you don't take care of yourself. So usually what happens is, even in certain women, once they have, they've come back, if she's 60 kgs and she's come down to 50 kgs, and all of a sudden her weight springs back to 58 kgs, that's when she would again see that her periods have become irregular. So even when we talk about a reversible PCOS, or even when we talk about reversing PCOS, it is extremely important to continue the lifestyle changes that you have brought into your schedule, into your routine,
Yeah.
and make sure that you don't go back to the lifestyle that you were living before. Why do we call it a lifestyle change?
Yeah.
Call it a lifestyle change because we have to live with it now, and change is the only constant. So if you think that going back to the original lifestyle, the lifestyle that you were living before, would help in any which ways, it won't. So PCOS can reoccur if you don't take care of yourselves, and it could also happen due to certain medications. It could happen due to stress, depression, and a lot more things. In fact, in certain women, after pregnancy, their PCOS disappears all of a sudden. So
Yeah.
this is again a talking point. This is, a lot of studies are being conducted on it as to how it just goes away all of a sudden. And in certain women, women would have PCOS after they've given birth.
Yes, yes, yes.
So PCOS is, it's an unpredictable syndrome. It can happen in childbearing age. It can happen in, even when you are 35, 40 years old. So, it's ever evolving, and studies are still going on as to how PCOS can be regulated.
Absolutely. So I think that answers, thank you for talking about gut health, the fact that it can reoccur. And that is, I think, the main conflict because the research is, like, yes, Ayurveda does say that it can be cured in many ways. But I think one very important concern that comes to us again and again is the right kind of practitioner also. A lot of people these days are saying that, follow this diet plan and you'll be fine. And that is something very, very problematic because, like you very rightly said, that it is a syndrome. It is, people think that it is just about fertility, it is just about menstruation, but it is not. When there is a hormonal disbalance in your body, your reproductive organ being affected is just one of the ways. There are, your gut health is being affected, your mental health is also being affected.
Absolutely.
Because your serotonin levels and everything is, somebody has asked a question about insulin also, and of course the insulin, thyroid, they are all affected.
Absolutely.
Huda, can you tell us, like, we have another 9 minutes with you.
Yeah.
To 9 to 10 minutes. So if you can quickly tell the attendees here, when somebody is looking for a diet plan, what are some do's and don'ts? Because
Right.
diet plans are easy to get. People are selling for 400, 500 rupees these days.
Right. Very true.
You can't eat the same thing every day. I mean, it's
Right.
not holistic or anything.
Right.
So you gave some wonderful advice about a staggered change in lifestyle. The start with one thing. So when somebody is going to an Ayurvedic practitioner or homeopathic practitioner, yes, it all helps. But what are some things that we should look out for? When being a dietitian or a nutritionist, when looking at a diet plan, when going to a practitioner, what are some things that we should keep in mind? What are some things we should keep in mind after the diet plan is over? How can we manage this?
Right. Before I answer this question, Swarnima, I see somebody has asked a question regarding about eggs and dairy towards hormonal changes, because Ayurveda says that you should avoid these.
Yeah.
Now, with respect to dairy, their studies are still going on as to whether you should avoid dairy or you shouldn't be avoiding dairy completely. In my case, as a nutritionist, because we cater to everybody, be it an allopath, be it an Ayurvedic practitioner or a homeopath, since we cater to everybody, I cannot just say that leave dairy out of your diet, because there are so many people who love dairy, be it yogurt, be it paneer, and also they are vegetarians. So they don't have too many options for calcium, protein, and all of these things. So they have to stick by it. So I would say that you can reduce the consumption of dairy, go slow on dairy, don't consume too much of dairy in your diet. And even as for that matter, eggs. Now, if you're eating eggs like, 2 or 3 eggs in like a week, it won't really make so much of difference, because let me tell you a very practical thing. What if I end up eating a slice of pastry, or what if I end up eating a bar of chocolate? Is it going to harm me more than the egg? So this is a very, very practical thing that we should have in our minds, that when don't go overboard if there is something that tells you, okay, milk is very bad, because usually, nowadays you would see there's a lot of veganism that's going around. So people would say, okay, completely remove milk from your diet, completely remove eggs from your diet. It is you who's going to make the decision. Nobody else is going to make the decision for you. So when it comes to milk, I would say go slow on milk, but don't remove it completely from your diet, because we need to follow a very sustainable approach, and an approach that we can stick to even tomorrow. What if today I'm saying I will not have dairy, but after say 2 months, 3 months, I just feel like eating dairy and I start eating dairy like like anything. So how did it matter then?
Yeah.
So let's be very practical. Rather than consuming unprocessed foods, rather than consuming refined foods, if we are, having dairy or eggs, there's nothing wrong in it. Again, why people are saying dairy? Because a lot of hormonal injections are given to the cows, and also the cows tend to make this milk for their child. So it definitely has some amount of hormones in it, and that's the correlation. I won't go into it because that will be too scientific. So there is a correlation where they say, okay, these hormones can damage your your skin, your reproductive system. A lot of studies are going on. So let's come down to a conclusion where we say, okay, we have dairy, but we won't have too much of it. So moderation is the key to everything.
And I think this is something that every good practitioner, tells you. There are some people who say it very clearly that if your digestive health is completely bad, your hormonal health, somebody's
Absolutely.
talking about, that the menstruation has not happened for like 5 months or 6 months. In these
Right.
situations, maybe in the beginning, like stay away from things that can aggravate your stuff like
Certain
gluten.
foods. Yeah. Hmm.
Every good practitioner says that you have to keep testing what you're sensitive to.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
it's possible that I've heard of many people who are lactose intolerant, but
Absolutely.
he helps them a lot because it is
Hmm.
not exactly.
Yeah. 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 Hmm.
This is something that for all the people who have asked questions about diet and everything, please keep in mind exactly what Huda said. That sensitivities keep coming and going. You have to keep checking out what you're sensitive to. Don't make all kinds of changes all of a sudden because it is actually not practical. Most diet plans
Absolutely.
don't work, not because the diet plan is wrong, but because it's not sustainable.
We do everything together.
Everything together. And the thing is that habit formation is much more important than what you're eating. If you're eating that, oh my god, I will only eat sattu but I'm feeling so stressful, that is not going to do anything for you. So habit formation is very important, and keeping an eye on what you're sensitive to, uh, what is changing in your body, what's not, that's very important. We have only 3 more minutes, and we have so many questions, but the most of these questions are very, very
Very
personalized.
simple. Yeah. Yeah.
So we'll keep answering them in the coming days. We have a panel of experts who are always answering questions. So to everyone who've asked very, very personal questions about, like your particular cases, about your age and everything, we will answer all this from a panel of experts who are also endocrinologists, and you'll get a different kind of perspective from everywhere. One last question, Huda, very quickly, is that if somebody has to get a diagnosis, what are some signs and symptoms that a person has to keep note of that say, that something is wrong with the body and something needs attention? So
Right.
how can that process start?
Right. Before I say this, I would also like to add one thing. When we talk about the diet, always remember one size does not fit all. Just like one medicine won't suit different people. Because even if you go to see somebody who's suffering from PCOS, somebody who's suffering from diabetes, they would be put on different medications depending on their levels. So even with PCOS, we see most of the women feel that they would be put on contraceptives, but that's not the right approach because every woman doesn't need contraceptives. So
Yes.
one size does not fit all when you are planning a diet, or when you are, when you go to a practitioner. Your diet should be high on fiber, moderate protein, and low on fats. So low on fats, you can definitely have your healthy fats, but make sure that you're not having too much of fried or outside foods, processed foods, refined foods, and this should really help. So fiber would be your fruits, vegetables, whole grains, your nuts, seeds. All of these things should be a part of your diet. When it comes to the diagnosis, number one thing is, usually the main diagnosis that we look for is irregular menstruation. That is one thing doctors would definitely ask you when you say that, okay, you are feeling that you might have PCOS. Number two would be acne or oily skin. So all of a sudden you would see that your skin has become really oily and you are having frequent breakouts like never before. So you used to get these breakouts, but now your face is filled with acne. So that is another marker. So even if you go to a dermatologist, he or she would ask you if you have thyroid or PCOS. The reason why they ask you is because this is another marker or another sign that's seen in PCOS. Next, you would commonly see hair thinning, okay, and hair loss when you have PCOS. Because if you see this trend, PCOS definitely affects your skin and your hair first. It is going to affect your skin and hair. And most of the women who suffer from PCOS complain of, skin problems and hair thinning.
Yeah.
So these symptoms would definitely be seen. Again, digestive issues. A lot of women have digestive issues once they start suffering from PCOS. The normal foods that they were eating and they were able to digest, they are unable to digest those foods. So this is another thing. And constant mood swings. You were all normal, but all of a sudden you see mood swings. All of a sudden you see that your weight is increasing like never before. So in the last 2 months you put on 4 to 5 kgs of weight. So this is another marker that you need to that you would see. So preferably, I would see if you are, I would say that if you are suffering from PCOS, you might have, irregular menstruation. Now, again, not all women have it, but most of the women tend to.
All right.
Stress levels go up and digestive issues. And, you are really moody and your weight tends to, is fluctuating a lot. So these are few things you need to look for if you are, if you think that you are suffering from PCOS. And hair growth.
Absolutely. Thank you, Huda, so very much. I think this was one of the most exhaustive conversations I have witnessed when it comes to PCOS. And to all the attendees who are here, who are asking questions, and those who are not asking questions, please know that we will be getting back to each of those questions you've answered, either today, after the panels are over, or in between if I have time, or we will get back to you either via social media, WhatsApp, whatever. All your questions will be answered by experts. So please don't worry. Huda, thank you so very much for your time. I know you're fasting. It couldn't have been easy. Thank you for squeezing us in your calendar. We deeply, deeply appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you so much for inviting me, Swarnima. And this is one topic that I would love to talk about any day, because I've been doing a lot of research on this topic and I've been working towards women's health. So, PCOS is one thing that we really need to spread awareness about, because, people just go crazy when it comes to the information that is available on Google. And thanks to the WhatsApp university, you have so much of information that's thrown at you, and you try and do everything. So again, there's one question that I'd like to answer in just like 30 seconds. A gluten-free diet for PCOS, I would suggest, again, don't do anything that you see on the internet. If you've read about it, just don't try and experiment it with yourself. Remember, at the end of the day, we are Indians, and wheat, barley, ragi, all of these, they come under our staple diet. So
Yeah.
just don't eliminate it from your diet, thinking that okay, because I have PCOS, I should leave it behind. It has worked for some people. Believe me, there are some people, back in the US, UK, Australia, if you go to see, it has really helped them, because gluten is typically not a part of, their diet. They can survive on sauteed veggies, they can survive only on chicken, only on boiled eggs. It's absolutely okay for them. But for us as Indians, because rice, roti, all of these things are our staple diet, don't just leave it behind or remove it from your diet. Maybe you could reduce the portions, or if you're consuming gluten twice in a day, make it once in a day, and see if it is having, if it's affecting you in a good way. But just don't remove it from your diet because you've read it somewhere or it has worked for somebody else.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we will be sharing, more videos and stuff. Of course, the recording of this will also be available to everyone, so you can go back and listen to everything. We will also be sharing more videos on each and every point about this, about gluten, about dairy, about gut health. We'll be doing that in the coming weeks. So thank you so much once again, Huda. Before you leave, I just want you to meet Amruta, who's our next speaker. She's a lot of fun, and you should like.
Hi,
Amruta,
Huda.
Amruta,
Hello.
she calls her, um, her Instagram handle PCOD made me do it,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
So, Amruta, can you quickly, we've got another like 10 or 13 minutes. So, can you quickly tell us a little bit about your PCOS journey and what have you cooked for us today?
Yeah, so with respect to my PCOS journey, I have had it for like more than 12, 13 years. And but in the past 1 year or more than a year is when I've actually started working on it. And like Dr. Huda said, gut health was what I concentrated on the most. Um, but for me, like you said, everyone is different, everyone's body is different. For me, I did the elimination diet, which is basically I cut out gluten for 2 months and then introduced it back to my diet just to see how it works with my body. And I realized it was giving me very bad bloating, cramps. And I realized, okay, it's time. I think I find something different for me. Same thing with dairy. I found out dairy gave me diarrhea, but not when it came to yogurt or dahi. So I am not. So a few things worked for me, a few things didn't. Everyone is different. So I get a lot of questions online as well, like, do you have to be gluten free, dairy free? And I always say, listen to your body. Go do what your
Absolutely.
body
Absolutely.
wants you. Like, just because you are hearing everywhere gluten free and dairy free works for PCOS doesn't mean it might work for you. You might be okay with
Absolutely.
eating rotis every day, but listen to yourself. And with respect to my journey, again, I have hirsutism. I've always had irregular periods. Anxiety, depression started setting in after I got married. And when I was on the pre-diabetic levels is when I actually started thinking like maybe it is time I start taking action and work on it. For me, finding a support group was like the biggest change or the start of the journey, I would say. Finding a support group and learning about my own body. Um, and because for the longest time I thought I was like the only one who was going through this. None of my friends had it. None of the people I know had it. When I found a support group, I was like, okay, maybe I am not alone. There are so many people who are going through this. Okay, they are going through the same problems I have. That is weird. I didn't know this was caused by PCOS. So it's like it was a revelation for me.
That
uh,
realization journey.
Yes, yes. And I'm happy I did because since I started this journey, I have lost 8 pounds, which again, weight loss is not everything, but
Absolutely.
I am in a much better place mentally. I feel like I can do it. It's manageable. And for what I have cooked today, again, rice is my absolute love. Like, I will binge on rice every meal, but I have had to cut down on that, and finding out different substitutes for it has been a challenge. Today I made cauliflower rice. I don't know if you guys see it.
Yeah,
So
I
cauliflower
can see.
rice is a good substitute for rice. It's exactly, obviously not rice, but it has the same texture, and it will count as the carb in your meal. Another thing which I have been doing is add some greens. They don't have to be raw. Any kind of greens. You can have spinach, you can have dill, you can have methi,
Okay.
mustard, anything. Just have some greens in your diet. Growing up, I had all the veggies. After I got married, my husband is not a huge fan of veggies. He wants his chicken in every meal. Um, I kind of obviously I started eating that too, but now that I have found my love back for veggies, I make it a point, even if I'm making anything chicken or fish, I make it a point I have some veggie side to go with it. So if you are changing your diet or your lifestyle, baby steps, like Dr. Huda said, baby steps is like the important thing. And include leafy greens in your diet. It's you've always heard your mom say it, eat your greens, eat your veggies, but I think it's time you guys listen to her and cut out on all the Maggie and all the samosas you eat.
Yeah, so I'd like to add
All
one
right.
thing to this. We are actually going back to what our ancestors used to eat. So, we are
Yeah.
definitely, and also with the pandemic around, people are realizing it is very important to live, a life that is simpler. And, we are realizing that simple food is also bliss, because we see so many people out there who don't even have, that food that we have. So, yeah, that's about it.
All right. So we have another 5 minutes, and in that, I just want to repeat to all the people that the questions that have been asked are deeply, deeply like medical and personal. So what I recommend is that for this webinar, please listen closely to what the experts are saying overall, say about the relationship between gut and PCOS, the relationship between sleep cycle and hormonal cycle, and take cues from that. And as far as your very particular questions are concerned, we will get more experts to answer. We've noted down all your questions and it will be answered. Um, Before I bring on the next panelist, I just want to ask the both of you once again, and Amruta, maybe you can go first. What finally motivated you to make the change in your diet and lifestyle sustainably? Because this is a big challenge, habit formation of any kind. And once habit formation happens, it all feels very easy. So, what is something you did that finally made it easy for you to sustainably follow a healthier, better diet and lifestyle?
I would say I started it like week by week. So I decided, okay, this week we are just going to decide how we are going to do it. No taking any steps, nothing. Just this week is just going to be mental preparation and getting ready for it. The next week I changed my breakfast. So I always had like bread or some like heavy breakfast, or sometimes I would skip it entirely. But the next week I moved on to porridge or boiled eggs and fruits and nuts. So I changed my breakfast the week. I kept my lunch and dinner the same. No touching that. Don't worry about lunch and dinner now. Just focus on breakfast. Then the next week, breakfast and lunch. Again, don't worry about the dinner. Just and then obviously you are going to have bad days. You are still human. You are going to feel like, okay, today I want to have some noodles, or today I want to have some rice. But the most important thing for me is getting back on the routine the next day, not just like, okay, I ate bad yesterday, might as well just leave everything and go back to eating shit again. So don't do that. You need to, because at the end of the day, you are going to benefit from it, no one else. Like, no matter how you think, okay, if I do this, my husband, my boyfriend, or my partner will feel good about it because I look good. No, at the end of the day, it's for you. It's your body. It's your health. So just baby steps. Take it day by day. If you fall down the horse, get back on it the next day, or the after 2 days. But the important thing is just and find a support group. Yes, find a support group.
Right.
Absolutely. I think, finding a support group is so important because, this is something that Huda has also mentioned, and I can see the anxiety in so many people who've asked questions, that, a lot of people, like you said, Amrita, felt that you were the only one going through this. And even though now, this thing has changed so much, there are support groups that are out there are communities out there, WhatsApp groups. Even now, I feel that when people are having this health issue, it feels so deeply personal, it feels so unfair that it becomes very difficult to find the motivation. So it is at this time that a supportive, community, and finding a supportive group that tells you that, hey, you know what, you are not alone in this. I think that goes a long way in telling the person that there's nothing wrong with you. You are not a, like I was discussing with Huda, that a lot of people, as equate bad lifestyle with bad women, and therefore there is so much judgment that is associated with PCOS and endometriosis, and people don't want to talk about it. So we just want you to know that these days we are living in a world that is very different from our parents and grandparents. We have environmental toxins to deal with that I don't think previous generations really did. And those are playing a role. There is a lot of research now that draws a connection between climate change, endocrine disruptors, and the effect on sexual and reproductive health. So don't think that you are doing something wrong and you did this and you did that. No, it's very common. However, curing it, managing it, improving your symptoms is in your hands. It can be very pressurizing, but it can also be very empowering, that you can do some things that can make a great change. So thank you so very much, Amruta. I loved you showing the little bowl of stuff that you made for us. And Huda, you patiently took us through the entire landscape of PCOS and nutrition and gut health and hormones.
And so very informational as well.
So very informational. And
I'd like to add one thing, Swarnima, here, that most of the women live in guilt. So leave that G word aside. Leave that G word aside. You don't have to live in guilt. PCOS is not just because you are smoking or drinking. I mean, we are living in a world where almost everybody is doing it, but it's only the kind of moderation you need to practice. It's on you how much you need to have it and where you need to stop. So if you know how to moderate it, if you know, this is going to, be problematic for you in the future, you might as well, stop it on your own. So it's okay to consume it like once or twice, but don't make it a routine, and don't feel guilty about whatever you are doing. Do it for yourself.
absolutely, absolutely. So thank you so much, Huda. Thank you so much, Amruta. We are deeply grateful for your time, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Thank you so
Thank
much. It was
you.
lovely to be a
Bye-bye.
part of this webinar. Bye. Take care.
Our pleasure.
Thank you.